What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm back with yet another schedule previewed record prediction video. And today we're going to be doing the 2020 Appalachian State Mountaineers. App State is a team that is always on top of the Sun Belt. They're always a really, really, really good team. They have pulled off some really historic upsets, including the upset against Michigan last year. They were no different. They won the Sun Belt and won their bowl game. It was a great season for App State. It's a team that is returning their quarterback, Zach Thomas, and I absolutely love Zach Thomas. I think he is a great player, but they are losing their leading rusher, Darrington Evans, so they're going to have to replace him. I believe Williams is going to come in there to be the starting running back. They have a pretty good receiver core, but on the defensive side, they're losing a lot of top tacklers and just got to fill some holes. But overall, App State is far and away the best team in the Sun Belt yet again this year. So we are going to see if App State can win yet another Sun Belt title and possibly make a New Year's Six bowl, or if App State is going to fall off from where they have been in previous seasons. Here's the schedule for the Appalachian State Mountaineers, and it is a pretty interesting schedule, in my opinion. Besides Sun Belt Conference play, their non-conference should be fairly interesting. Their 2019 record was 13-1, which is an absolutely insane record. Great record for App State, the record that Ohio State did last year, and they matched Ohio State. Of course, didn't face toughest competition, but it was highlighted by wins against North Carolina and South Carolina. They ended up winning the Sun Belt Championship against the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, and they ended up winning their bowl game. So overall, a really good season for App State. You'll look up there, their home games are going to be in yellow, and their away games are going to be in black. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the App State schedule in their first game of the season. It should be an easy one for App State. It's going to be against the Morgan State Bears. An easy win here for App State, in my opinion. Then their next game, they get to play two road games. First one is on the road at Wake Forest. It's going to be a Friday game. I think a lot of people are quick to write us off as like, oh, App State's going to win. But I'm not sure that the Wake Forest is such an easy win. Remember, it's a Power 5 versus a Group of 5 team. So Wake Forest is going to have more talent than App State naturally. And a lot of people, I've said this a lot, but a lot of people forget about Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman is still a pretty good quarterback. Yes, Wake Forest doesn't have Jamie Newman and doesn't have the defensive players they did last year. But overall, Wake Forest is still a fairly decent team. I do not expect them to be as good as they were last year, but Sam Hartman still definitely a really, really good quarterback. And this one could be closer. I think I'm going to lean towards App State because I think Zach Thomas just plays better with his receivers than Sam Hartman does. I just feel like Zach Thomas trusts his wide receivers more. I know a lot of you probably haven't watched a lot of App State, but I have, and I love watching Zach Thomas play. I think it'll be a close game, though, but I'm going to give App State the edge here in this one. Not going to be surprised if Wake Forest ends up winning it. Then a road game against the Wisconsin Badgers, and this one's going to be really hard, and I feel like it's going to be closer than a lot of people think. I really like this Wisconsin team this year. They are my favorite to win the Big Ten West, and going to be a really interesting season for the Wisconsin Badgers. Of course, they got to replace a lot. They got to replace Quintez Cephas. They got to replace Jonathan Taylor, of course, lots of other guys, Aaron Cruikshank, but their defense is returning a lot. Zach Bond's coming back, and Wisconsin's defense is going to be one of the best in the Big Ten this year. I see Wisconsin being able to beat App State by definitely double digits, maybe, let's say, 14 to 20 points, but it's not going to be a 30-point win for Wisconsin by all means. App State's going to make this a competitive game for a little bit. Then a home game against the UMass Minutemen. UMass, not a very good team. App State should be able to win this one pretty handedly. Then they get their bye week, and in my opinion, this is a pretty good place for a bye week. It's before their bye week is before the two teams that could really give them a challenge, and the first one being it's going to be a Wednesday game against the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. So App State played them again last year. It was a pretty close competitive game, and then, of course, faced them in the Sun Belt title. That was also a really close competitive game. And this game is probably going to be no different. It's going to be a fairly good game, in my opinion. I believe that App State is the more talented team than Louisiana, but Louisiana does have some good weapons that can maybe give App State a little bit of a scare, but overall I like the Mountaineers to win that one, maybe by a touchdown or 10 points. Then they get a road game against the Georgia Southern Golden Eagles. This is another Wednesday game, and Georgia Southern was actually the team that beat App State last year. That was their one loss. It was to Georgia Southern, and App State actually lost that game at home. So now they have to go on the road and play Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern, again, has pulled off some big upsets. They beat Florida, I believe, in like 2007, 2008. Or it was a ways back. But Georgia Southern pulled off that upset and, of course, upset App State last year and pushed App State out of the top 25. Overall, I really do like both of these teams. I feel like App State definitely is the more talented team, but Georgia Southern, again, probably could give App State a scare this year, but I'm going to lean towards the Mountaineers just because I feel like they are overall more talented, and I feel like the replacement for Darrington Evans is in full swing by this point. Then a home game against the Arkansas State Red Wolves, and they're back to playing on Saturdays for the remainder of the season. This one should be an easy one. Arkansas State's not all that great of a Sun Belt team, so App State shouldn't have a problem with the Red Wolves. Then they get a road game against the University of Louisiana Monroe Warhawks. And I think a lot of people are very quick to overwrite ULM, but ULM is one of the better group of 5 teams, especially in the Sun Belt. They're up there with Louisiana for challenging App State. So this could be another tricky game for App State. I could see them potentially being able to lose this one, but App State, again, is way too talented. And I feel like they're going to be able to win this one pretty handedly as well. But again, I don't know. I can't say that. I feel like App State definitely is the more talented team, and I think they're going to win this game, but I think it's going to be really, really close, maybe a 3 to 7 point game. Going to be pretty close. ULM's got some good athletes that can really challenge App State. And I think people are going to be quick to write off this game because App State really should roll through Sun Belt Conference play, but there are teams that can give App State a struggle, and ULM is one of them. Wouldn't be surprised if this were a game App State could lose. Then a road game against the Texas State Bobcats, and this one should be another easy win for the Bobcats. Texas State is not very good, so the Mountaineers should be able to win this one on the road, get a pretty good road win. Then a home game against the Georgia State Panthers. So Georgia State is a team that beat Tennessee last year, and Tennessee ended off finishing the season pretty good and winning their bowl game against Indiana. Georgia State maybe could give App State a game for a quarter or two, but this game is at home for App State, and I just see App State being able to roll over this game and win this one pretty easily. Then a road game against the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Yes, that is their mascot. Coastal Carolina was a team who's actually pretty good in another sport. They're pretty good in baseball, but we're not here to talk about baseball. We are here to talk about college football. And in terms of college football, Coastal Carolina is okay. Maybe they can hang with App State for a quarter or two because it's at home, but I don't see them giving App State too big of a problem. App State, again, just should be able to win that one easily as well. Then their final game of the season is a home game against the Troy Trojans. This game is interesting to me because I feel like Troy could be the surprise team in the Sun Belt this year, but they're definitely not as talented as App State. So this game is interesting for me because Troy I definitely could see being like an 8-4, 9-3, maybe if they get lucky, a 10-2 team, and maybe could challenge App State, but overall Troy just is not as talented as App State. Zach Thomas is on a whole new level than every other quarterback in the Sun Belt. So I see App State being able to win this one pretty convincingly as well. All right, so now with everything being said and considered for the App State Mountaineers, I have them going 10-2. Now, one of those losses is on the road to Wisconsin, of course, but I also see them losing another game somewhere, whether Georgia Southern is able to beat them, Louisiana is able to beat them, Louisiana Monroe is able to beat them, on the road at Wake Forest. I mean, there are so many spots where they could lose a game. I don't feel like they're going to lose a game at home. I feel like Morgan State's an easy win, UMass easy win, Arkansas State's an easy win, Georgia State's a fairly easy win, and then Troy is also could be competitive, but also a fairly easy win. I feel like there are 2 games they're going to lose are on the road, and it might be those 2 games to Power 5 opponents, and then they should win out. But I would expect if App State were to keep the Wake Forest game close or even like blow them out, it's going to be a dangerous team. Wisconsin should watch out for. But I do have them, as I just said, going 10-2. So let's move on to the record range for the App State Mountaineers. And worst case scenario is 8-4 for App State, which is going to be unusual because App State usually has 9 or 10, 11 wins every single year in the Sun Belt. But when you look at their schedule, it's definitely harder than last year. They got to play North Carolina and South Carolina, but at the time, those 2 teams, well, North Carolina was pretty good, but South Carolina wasn't all that great. Wake Forest, in my opinion, is better than South Carolina, and of course, they have to play a big, big name in Wisconsin. So it's going to be interesting to see how App State goes, but I totally could see them losing both of those games, and then they got some tricky road games, like on the road at Georgia Southern, on the road at ULM. And maybe the Ragin' Cajuns can beat App State at home. So a lot of spots that App State can slip up. And if the running back Williams cannot play like Darrington Evans and receiver core doesn't play up to date and they just can't replace their leading tacklers, App State could go 8-4 this year. But I don't see that happening. I see App State being able to replace, but that is the absolute worst case scenario. Now their absolute best case scenario for me is 11-1. I mean, their schedule is just too difficult for the talent that App State has to not lose a game this year. Again, they're going on the road at Wake Forest, on the road at Wisconsin. They have to go on the road to play Georgia Southern and ULM. Of course, they always have to play Louisiana. So it's going to be hard for App State to get through the schedule undefeated. Now, I do think if they can beat Wisconsin, that is going to be huge. I mean, if they can beat Wisconsin, that's going to be huge. And it's a team, and App State very well could go undefeated if they can beat Wake Forest and Wisconsin. I see them mainly dropping one of those 2 games because they are on the road against Power 5 opponents. Of course, Power 5 just has more talent naturally than the Group of 5 teams, for the most part at least. So, again, I just see App State's best case scenario being 11-1. But my current prediction for the Appalachian State Mountaineers is 10-2. All right, so that's going to do it for my 2020 schedule preview and record prediction for the Appalachian State Mountaineers. And if you guys enjoyed, please leave a like. Also consider subscribing if you are brand new to the channel or just enjoy my content. And if you haven't done so already, please do leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the App State Mountaineers. And as always, until next time, remember, play hard but tailgate harder. I'll see y'all in the next video. Goodbye.